I'm Mark Greenstein of Ivy Bound. I've been helping students with SAT prep for over 30 years. And a fairly common question is, what do I do if my SAT actual score is significantly below my practice test scores? Well, I'm going to tell you the good news. It's better to have that version than the inverse, that your practice test scores never got that high. So even with a peak SAT, peak for you not being that high, you've got a lot of work to do still. The person who had high practice test scores and didn't make it on one day at their max, well, you don't have a lot of work to do. You need a good test day. So here's a few things that might have afflicted you that you could avoid on the next test. Perhaps 1, you were distracted by other students. Perhaps 2, you had one bad small section that you dwelled on too long and ended up having to rush through the rest of the section. Perhaps 3, you had a bad section and you started thinking about that when you were on to the next section. Once section 2 is over, you have only 3 and 4 to go. Don't be thinking about section 2, good or bad. Your thoughts should be on the section you're on. You might have had a bad start to the day, that maybe back at home you forgot something. You didn't have a good breakfast and you knew it. You left your best eyewear at home and now you're squinting. Okay, that's not well prepared, and that might be affecting you throughout your 4 hours of testing. Perhaps you never gave yourself a true practice test that runs at least 3 hours, and if you've only done section at a time, you never put it together. So all these things are rectifiable. There's one thing about a practice test that can't be simulated. We know that it doesn't count and that the SAT does. We try to make everything else as close in practice to the real thing on the SAT. Same timing, ideally the same time of day, same kind of food intake that you would do. If you're used to taking a certain medication to be at your best, you do that in practice as well. Simulating everything possible and doing it multiple times is my best prescription for having a peak test that equals or maybe even exceeds your best practice test.